this is kind of my journey with YouTube. And Chris, I know you have a YouTube channel as well. I never really know what's going to do well on YouTube. It's all a trial balloon. And some of the videos that haven't done well have surprised me. Some of the videos that have done well. Now, I may post this on YouTube and it might do really well. I did an interview with a book club, a Saber book club. So the baseball, what is it? The statistical, baseball, whatever the acronym is for, but kind of baseball stats and research group from my hometown of Toledo, Ohio. And I just talked for 10 minutes about Mike Schilt. And it's been my best video by far on YouTube. I never thought that would have been the case, but that was just basically me and some folks from my hometown talking about baseball for what ended up being about 70 minutes. But because that Mike Schilt conversation was very topical, it was very trending, that's become my best video so far. I mean, you never know what topic, what conversation. You and I could have a conversation about something, and then the next day something happens, and all of a sudden that's a searchable topic, and everybody's wanting to know more about that specific subject.
Yeah. And I'm just still trying to build my audience up. And as some of my guests have told me, don't worry about the views right now. Just keep doing your weekly podcast. Keep getting great guests on here, and the numbers, things will eventually pick up.
Yes, especially with YouTube, where YouTube is a hard journey. And it's very gratifying, though, and satisfying when you get to the point where if you're looking at the monetization thresholds, which are 1,000 subscribers, that's not easy. That's not easy to get to. I started my YouTube channel with something like, I think, almost 16,000 Twitter followers. I thought I would get to 1,000 YouTube subscribers quickly. It was not easy whatsoever. It took me months. Talking about that threshold of 4,000 viewable hours. Again, if you want to hit a monetization threshold on YouTube, that took me 7.5 months. So that's 7.5 months of grinding every day for nothing till you get to that point to even make 1 cent. So that's where, for yourself, for anybody watching this that's trying to start a YouTube channel or a podcast, yes, don't worry about the views early. Don't worry about the watch time. Don't worry about the downloads, because your best day in your first month, you're going to realize once you really get it going, 5 months from now, 10 months from now, 5 years from now, you're going to do 100 times that in a day once you really get rocking and rolling. So it is a grind, but honestly, now that I look back after the 7.5 months it took me to build up my YouTube to the point that I have it now, which still, by the way, it's not a big channel. It's growing, but it's not a big channel. There are channels that are way bigger than mine, but it's very gratifying after 7.5 months of doing it for nothing to get to the point where it's starting to pay off a little bit.
And I was gonna say as well, like I said, a year and a half ago, I had no subscribers, and I'm only at 62. But my goal right now is to try to get 100 subscribers, and then just keep going. But you're right about YouTube; it takes time. And the thing what I have going in my favor right now, Charlie, is I have a video resume of my podcast as well, so people can see what I'm doing on YouTube video or on my audio form. So I'm on like 9 audio forms and 3 video forms. So I'm getting exposure on social media.
Yeah, and we can kind of turn this into a YouTube how-to tutorial, because that's another big search topic, specifically on YouTube. And I would tell people, look, I watched folks that were teenage girls on how to monetize and how to be successful on YouTube. I watched all these different videos on what are the tips to try to be successful. And you got to make long videos, right? The longer your videos are, the longer your watch time is going to be. So if this video ends up being 45 minutes, now look, if you post this, if I post this, if the average watch time is, let's say, 13 minutes out of 45 minutes, that's great. That's actually fantastic. You might think, oh, that means they're only watching for 13 minutes. That's taken into account a lot of people that click on immediately and stop watching. I mean, I'm trying to think over the course of, I've probably done 250 videos. I don't know if I've ever had a watch time over 13 minutes. And I've posted some videos that are 50 minutes long. So if you post a 25, 30-minute conversation, and if people are listening for an average of 8 minutes, 9 minutes, 10 minutes, you should be very happy about that. And again, that's how you really build up your viewable hours over time.
Well, thank you. And I'm just trying to keep grinding away on it every day. And I've been lucky to get great guests like yourself and Amy Lawrence and Chuck Swirsky and Dan Shulman from ESPN on here and Bob Sochi. So I say a podcast is only as good as your guests are.
Well, I appreciate that. No, I appreciate you having me on, and you've asked a lot of great questions. Amy Lawrence, I was actually on her
Yeah.
show. It's After Hours now, right?
After hours with Amy Lawrence, she's been on my podcast twice. Really good person.
Yeah, she's great, and I listened to her over the years at her different stations because I always work nights. I'm driving home at night and all that, so I knew her well, but I'd never talked to her in person. And I was on her show a couple weeks back. It was right after the Cardinals' 17 game win streak was snapped, so I was on that show. And again, that's where look, you're getting all these guests where people like to just go to a podcast, they like to go to YouTube, and if it's 45 minutes and they have a commute to work. Maybe they're on vacation, they're in the car, and they want something to pass the time. They want to listen to a conversation. So, yeah, I would say if you can have guests on, and obviously you don't want to take all the guest time. Like I'm totally happy here going as long with you here. I have a radio show in about 45 minutes, but I think the
Okay.
long form conversations people like that. I mean, people might be on a 6 hour car ride, and they might want to listen to 6 different hour long podcasts to help them get through that drive. In the middle of the night.
Yeah. And like I said, I try to be flexible, Charlie. If a guest tells me they can only give me 15 minutes, I do it. And if a guest says I can stay for an hour, I do it. I just try to make sure I am on the same page as my guest. And that way they'll be happy with me and I won't upset them or whatever. You try to be flexible with your guests as well.
No, I hear you, and that's where I don't want to make this whole thing about YouTube, but I've now gotten to the point where if I can, I try to go as long as possible with any with any conversation, with any radio segment, with any interview, just knowing the longer and more interesting. I mean, you're not doing a long interview just to do a long interview. But the longer it is, the more interesting, the more in depth, the longer people are going to watch. And whatever business you're in, let's not pretend like this is not. Hey, people they want to make money doing this, whether it's advertiser driven. The more people are watching, the more advertisers are going to want to come on board with whatever you're doing, podcast or YouTube, or if you're on YouTube. The longer your videos are, they're going to throw an ad up there every 5 minutes. And I'm fine with that because it's free content. I don't mind skipping through an ad or watching an ad for 5, 10, 15 seconds, knowing I can get really good quality free content on YouTube. Look at all the things you have to pay for these days. I mean, I pay for all the different streaming services because every one of them has a TV show I feel like I can't miss, if it's Hulu or HBO Max, but I'll look at, I mean, The Athletic. If your local newspaper, you can't go to their articles anymore without paying. So the fact that YouTube and
True.
these podcasts are basically free and you just have to sit through a few ads, I'm fine with that.
Definitely. Just want to ask you two more questions. Originally, my name on my podcast was 30 Minutes Live with CDP, but most of my podcasts are usually about 45 minutes to an hour. So I just scrapped the name 30 Minutes Live and just went with Live with CDP. That way, I don't have a time constraint with my the name of my show.
There you go. No, that makes sense. I like it. Or you could kind of have fun with it. You could just call it 30 minutes or every once in a while 40. But yeah, no, I get that. I think, but also if you call it 30 minutes live, I think people understand it might be 25 minutes, it might be 37 minutes. You'll see these segments on TV, they call it the 2 minute drill
Yeah,
or the minute man, whatever it is, but it's not exactly a minute or 2 minutes. It's just we're just thinking up names. Let's be real. Almost every name has been taken. Think about local radio over the years. Has there been any name with a sports reference that hasn't been taken? Whether it's the dugout, the box seat, the press box, the
yeah,
bullpen, the fourth line,
yeah.
whatever it is. I mean, all the names are taken. It's hard to find a creative name these days.